The following is an audio recording of a presentation given at the November 2014 Notre Dame Tax Institute on Reverse Mortgages by Alan S. Gassman. If you would like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, please email Janine Gunyon at janine@gassmanpa.com. We hope you enjoy this presentation.
I'm going to start by showing you a commercial that you've already seen. I want you to note it's with Senator Fred Thompson. It doesn't mention that he's no longer a senator, and it doesn't mention that this is not a governmental program, but let's go ahead and watch the commercial.
Hi, I'm Fred Thompson. And you know, if you're like a lot of folks out there lately, then finances might be a little tight. Well, maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Because if you're 62 years or older and own your own home, then join hundreds of thousands of other Americans who have used a reverse mortgage as a safe, effective financial tool. A government-insured reverse mortgage allows seniors to stay in their own home and to turn their equity into tax-free cash without any monthly mortgage payments. You ought to call my friends at AAG. They could help you or your parents right now. And to find out more is absolutely free.
Call 1-800-848-7173 now to receive your free DVD and brochure with no obligation.
Find out how much cash you may qualify for. Call AAG today.
Call 1-800-848-7173 now to get your free Better Life information pack and DVD. That's 1-800-848-7173.
AAG, the best advice for a better life.
Okay, following the advertisement, which you've all seen, is small print that none of you would be able to read. And what that small print says, and I'm on page 2 of my PowerPoint outline, is that this is not a governmental program. Fred Thompson, although I'm sure he's a patriot, is not doing this for free. He is a paid spokesman. And if your house is upside down in debt and you die, will it be tax-free? Will it be tax-free when your state has income from the discharge of indebtedness? Well, he said it's tax-free cash, so you could just footnote him on your tax return when you don't pay tax when your house is upside down after this. So page 3, what's happening here? What's happening is that elderly Americans who don't want to leave their home because they don't want to change are being encouraged to stay in their home and to take a very large mortgage. They're not getting any help with what to do with the money from that mortgage. They're not being told that they have to maintain the house, that they have to pay the insurance, that they have to pay the real estate taxes, and that they have to stay in the home, and if they leave the home for 12 months, the loan is due. And if the loan is upside down, then they've lost all the equity in their home. And that's not really told to them by the very friendly salesman who calls as soon as you call that 800 number and has nice long conversations with lonely elderly people explaining to them how easy this is to do. And we know from representing elderly people and representing a lot of people that many folks would rather face destruction later than change now. And that's what is happening in a lot of these situations. Now on page 4, just a little bit of vocabulary. The mortgage is due when the home is sold, when you're no longer there for 12 months, such as if you have to go into a nursing home or you have to go live with your children, that triggers the loan. The borrower dies, or you can't keep up with the real estate insurance maintenance of the home. So let me give you multiple choice test. How many of you think that 3% of these loans are now in default? And how many of you think that just about 10% of these loans are now in default? 3%? 10%. The 10%'s happen. 10% of these loans are presently in default. Now, the way the loan works is you pay the lender some loan costs to close the loan, typically 2 to 3% of the value of the home. So on a $100,000 home, that's going to be $2,000 to $3,000. And then you agree that interest will accrue and will be paid when you sell the home. In addition to the interest, you pay a 1.25% annual fee to the U.S. government, Housing and Urban Development, in exchange for their insurance policy. And their insurance policy is that if and when the home is upside down, there's The lender still gets paid in full, so the lenders can't lose on this deal, and the borrower's family does not have to pay anything. The borrower, it's a non-recourse loan. So people are paying, on average, a fixed rate is 5% right now, plus 1.25 for a total of 6.25%. There's no credit history issues, so if you have bad credit and you are a bad financial decision maker, then you can enter into this loan agreement. Page 7, they run the numbers. They're required by the government to run numbers to show the homeowner what might happen. And they're allowed to show the numbers at a 4% appreciation rate of the home. And the average home appreciation rate in the United States in the last 10 years, if you take out the bubble, it's about 3.5%. And they're able to show a 4% rate of return on the home to explain to this elderly person that they're going to have equity in the home for the rest of their life. Well, in reality, although home prices may be increasing by 3.5% on average, any given home is not going up by 3.5% because it's older every year. If you're going to say that the average 20-year-old home with 2,000 square feet is going to be worth 3.5% more in 10 years as compared to another 20-year-old home at that time, then you can go with 3.5%. If you're going to say that it's the same home, homes last about 60 years. So you take what's left in the life of the home, you divide it by how many years, and you reduce that. So you're going to have more like a 1.5% to 2% a year growth. Now, page 8, I'm giving you the amounts that they're willing to loan. The government doesn't want to be stuck with a lot of these loans. They have about $80 billion of exposure right now, and they only have $5 billion in the fund. So the amount you can borrow depends upon your age. And some typical age amounts, age 62, they may loan you 49% of the home value, age 77, 60%, age 87, 70%. So you're not going to get that much of your equity out of the home. And then on page 9, this is a typical proposal. This is what you're going to see when you get the proposal. And the first choice is, and it's called an home equity conversion mortgage. That's those words HEC, the letters HECM. And this first choice with the interest rate and of 2.965% floating and 1.25% for the fee, you're looking at a 7.963% rate, and your closing costs are going to be $9,234. That's a lot for $190,000. That's a lot for a small loan. And then the second column, if you go with an 8.578% rate, your closing costs are lower, $5,934. That's, by the way, the 8.578 is the ceiling. You start on the float. It could go as high as 8.578%. Can anybody here imagine paying 8.578% on a home mortgage? Your closing costs are $5,934. In the third column, if you want your closing costs low, which a lot of elderly people are going to do, it's $4,484 in closing costs, and the ceiling on the loan is 13.59%. So what are your chances of having any equity after 20 years of paying 13.859%? Now, if you go to page 12, I've given you a system of spreadsheets that you can use, and if you send me an email, I'll be glad to send you these spreadsheets in Excel. And I've laid out 5 different scenarios, and so you can see what you can choose from. And there's different types of loans. The most popular loan is the line of credit loan, because of course the typical American borrower wants all the money they're borrowing immediately to spend it immediately. And with the line of credit loan, over the first 2 years, they give you the entire loan amount, and then they add on the expenses of making the loan, and then when you die or sell the home, they get paid. So that's the line of credit loan. A second kind of loan is a lifetime payment loan, which they also call a 10-year loan, because remember, tenure is the old word for a life estate. So in this situation, they would pay $8,000 a year. They would loan $20,000 in year 1, and then $8,000 a year for the person's entire lifetime, whether the home goes up in value or down in value. And then there can be a fixed 8-year loan where they would loan $1,200 a month. So you can talk to them on the phone and they'll run all these numbers for you. Now, if you go to page 15, I'll give you some example numbers. Page 15, you have a 79-year-old on the top left-hand side, and they borrowed $20,000 in year one, maybe to buy a car or something, and then they want the maximum line of credit loan, which they'll allow $64,000 at the end of year one and $49,000 at the end of year two. They make you wait. They don't want you to take the whole loan at once. That's part of the federal regulations. We'll say that the interest rate starts at 2.94%, but we'll go to 5% in year 6, so we can just run some realistic numbers. We'll add on the 1.25%, and the cumulative costs on line 9, as you can see, they had closing costs of $9,234. They owe $29,000 in the end of year 1. They've only received $20,000. And on column 13, we have the value of the home, which they're showing going up at 4%. Now, this is my spreadsheet. This is not the loan company's spreadsheet. So if you look at the pie chart on the bottom, after the second year, they've received $84,000. They owe $10,458 more in loan costs, and they have $102,000 equity in the home. Now, in 12 years, the next pie chart to the right, the equity is $46,000, and their costs are $112,000. Now, nowhere in the materials sent by the lender does it really explain to the borrower that not only are you borrowing $84,000, but you're going to owe $300,000 in 12 years. And this is based upon a 5% cap. And when I go to 22 years, I have a negative equity. Now, one thing very neat about these spreadsheets, and they're in Excel, you'll be able to use them, is if you see in the middle the up-down arrows, you can just click up or down for the interest rate that starts in year 6, and you can click up and down for the home appreciation rate. So I go to page 16, and I clicked the home appreciation down to 2% because I think that's much more realistic than 4%. And in 12 years, all the equity is gone. It's negative equity. On page 17, I've done the same thing for a 10-year loan. You borrow $20,000 the first year, then $14,000 a year for 9 years, a final borrowing $4,800 in year 10, thinking that the average 89-year-old is not going to spend as much as the average 79-year-old. And with 4% appreciation, you still have some equity in the home, but on page 18, at 2% appreciation, you have only $6,200 worth of equity. So when the client dies, you're going to have just turn over the keys, or you're going to have a probate to deal with giving a deed in lieu of foreclosure or allowing a foreclosure to occur. If you're upside down, you're going to have income from discharge of indebtedness issues, although you do have the Fred Thompson doctrine. You can quote his commercial that it's tax-free cash. Page 19 is a better scenario for most of your clients. And by the way, did you notice he said, are you short on cash? Then you should do this loan. Well, guess what? If you're short on cash, you shouldn't have a house that you can't afford. If you are short on cash and the average house in this system is $200,000, why don't you sell that house, buy a nice $100,000 condo near where your children live, and have lower expenses? So I pretty much took the same client here who was going to do a lifetime loan, and I said, let's sell the house for $190,000 and buy a $114,000 replacement home, because this is what the client was actually looking at, and let's invest the extra money available in a Barclays index fund, which I'm going to explain a Barclays index fund to you when we talk about variable annuities. And where would this client be? Well, they're going to have lower cash flow needs because they have a smaller home. A good estimate of what it costs to run your home is about 4% of value. So on a $200,000 home, it costs about $8,000 a year to have your home. On a $100,000 home, it costs about $4,000 a year to have your home. So if you save that and then you withdraw from this Barclay index hypothetical fund, then at the end of 10, 12 years, instead of having negative equity, you have a net worth of $332,000. I'd rather be in the second picture. I know it's hard for the elderly to face change and move out of their house, but page 20, I point out, of course, that reverse mortgages are encouraging unwise financial behavior, and also Medicaid eligibility can be implicated. In Florida, you can keep your home even if it's worth as much as $550,000. Medicaid cannot touch your home while you're alive. You can go live in a nursing home. After you die, your children inherit the home. Well, if you've borrowed on a reverse mortgage, you now have cash that's going to disqualify you from Medicaid. If you give that money away, you may be disqualified from Medicaid for 5 years. If you die and there's a reverse mortgage on the property, there's not going to be as much equity for your children. So I think it's a little bit sinister to say that reverse mortgages don't have any issues. You've also got potential loss of Social Security income benefits. If you are on SSI, Social Security income, and our materials go into a lot of detail on SSI, you better make sure you spend everything you borrowed before the end of the month, because if you have more than $2,000, you're kicked off of SSI. And that has apparently happened to a lot of the elderly who have engaged in this borrowing. Page 22, you have to go through counseling. The government's smart, and they say you have to go to a counselor to make sure you want the loan. Now, that doesn't happen until you've paid the upfront tentative loan costs, gotten all your approvals, you're ready to go, you go to the counselor. And the U.S. Government Accountability Office in 2009 impersonated borrowers and went to 15 different counseling sessions, and the counselors scored a perfect score of none of them got it right. None of the 15 interviews followed the guidelines. And in many cases, the counseling company only gets paid if you close the loan. So it's almost a counseling contingency fee. The counselors are not required to have financial background and are able to spend 1 hour. So that's been interesting. Page 23, there's some new legislation. It was the result of class action lawsuits and a lot of complaining. But as of April 25th, 2014, when the loan is made, if the borrower is married, then the loan has to be for the joint lifetime of the borrower and their spouse. Because what's happening now is a lot of loans were made to one spouse so that they could borrow more because of a shorter life expectancy. They'd move the house into that spouse's name. That spouse would take the loan. That spouse dies, and they force a sale of the house. And there is class action litigation going on by a public interest law firm in D.C. We're not sure how that's going to go, but at least if the loan took place after April 25th, 2014, and you were married, then that surviving spouse is protected. But I think people will probably get divorced to be able to borrow more, or they'll get married after they borrow, and that surviving spouse is going to be kicked out of the home. They're going to have to sell it in order to pay for the reverse mortgage. I'm going to go to page 26 now. And as always happens when you're a speaker at a conference like this, the law changes on Monday and you speak on Friday. But on November 10th, HUD did release a new regulation. It's going to take effect March 2nd, 2015, where at the top of this right-hand column, the lender is going to have to evaluate the borrower's willingness and capacity to meet the financial obligations. And if the mortgagor has not demonstrated this willingness to meet financial obligations, unless there's extenuating circumstances, there's going to be a set-aside account to pay interest, taxes, and maintenance. So that might slow this down for the poor borrowers or the borrowers in the poverty area. I doubt that this will close it down for a typical borrower.
Hopefully you'll have time to take a look through the materials to become familiar with these concepts. This is a very complicated area. It is particularly treacherous for senior citizens who do not have significant assets. And I hope that I've armed you with at least enough ammunition to be able to talk to these people, and I believe you'll find that the materials give you plenty of things to look at in determining how you are going to advise people in this area.